So, why does this matter to HR? I'm an HR director, I'm talking the whole time about operational improvement, service and cost and so on, and sometimes business leaders might think that I'm in the wrong space. Why am I not talking about performance appraisals? Why am I not talking about talent matrices and all that? And what I've found is that this methodology has a massive and profound impact on the things that matter to HR professionals. So your engagement scores on every single incident go through the roof. Your attrition just drops, it sort of disappears. The absence rate disappears. The cost of recruitment, people want to come and work for you. They just knock on your door. You don't have to spend anything, by the way, on employment branding and all that stuff. Your training and development, all that work on trying to justify the return on investment of training and development, it goes away because it's designed around adding value. Your employee relations improves, and so on and so on. We actually changed HR so significantly that my CEO said we've halved the cost and we've got twice the value, which is very nice, and I shall not forget that. So the sort of things that we did, of course, was we moved HR from being transactional, all about just processing stuff, to actually becoming agents of change, being a bit bold about leading and challenging the organisations to transform. We moved from looking at individual performance management and the kind of appraisal scheme and having people measuring and managing how many people had done appraisals and how many hadn't and giving regular reports on that, to actually looking at the way the organisation performs and how the organisation can improve its performance. We moved from process and procedures to workflows and enabling. We moved from complex everything to simplifying everything. And for an example, the appraisal scheme, there was, as Richard had mentioned, there was 2 appraisals every year and a multitude of questions to be asked. And we cut that. And the idea of cutting out appraisals entirely was too far for people, although I was happy to do that. But we went to a sort of simple format where we basically asked people, what is it you've learnt this year? What do you intend to improve next year? And what help do you need? And it's as simple as that, and we don't chase it. If that discussion is useful, they have it. Constant reporting, stopped all that. We said, if you want to report, ask us. If you want data, ask us, and we'll also analyse it. We stopped being remote, and we moved HR closer to the business. So moving a little bit more then into each aspect of what's important to HR, why does this method help so much? So engagement then. So I suppose when you think of engagement, you think of probably engagement surveys, engagement action plans, and so on. And what I've found is that actually engagement improves when you design the roles better, when the barriers are removed to giving good service, the sense of purpose increases, people get spontaneous recognition from customers and so on, and they start to achieve more, so their confidence grows, so obviously their engagement grows. I used to think that involvement was the thing that caused greater engagement, and I now realise that involvement is part of it, but it is also this design of work. It's also the ownership that comes from the work being designed properly, and also that empowerment that comes from the work being designed properly. And it's empowerment without risk, because you've tested, you've trialled, you've made sure people have got the skills, and then they can be empowered. And I actually remember visiting one of our divisions and saying that actually they feel they've been given power. So in terms of engagement survey scores, in 2012 we had an engagement score of 56%, and by 2 years later it was 82%. There will be no more engagement scores because I don't believe you need an engagement survey to know that your engagement has improved. We knew our engagement had improved massively. We didn't need a survey, or the cost of a survey, or the cost of analysing the survey, or the cost of doing the reports, the action plans. All that is just waste, really. You know when your engagement has improved. So performance management then, complex appraisal systems, well, they don't improve performance. What improves performance is having a good system of measurement that's in the work and that you can take corrective action in real time. But more importantly, the people who are doing the work have got control and sight of the measures so they can take action themselves, corrective action while they're working. A movement towards using data, it's extremely powerful. So people can predict performance, they can take preemptive action, and they can take the right decisions on where to focus improvement. Common measures really help to improve performance, and when you have leaders in the work, you don't need appraisals. So in terms of performance management, we saw a 30% improvement in that engagement question about how effective is performance management, and yet we pretty much ceased doing appraisals. They don't work. And interestingly, I saw recently an employee engagement action plan which had energize our people, and it said the first action in that was to issue the performance management process. Make sure everybody's in the performance management process. And I think, well, when does that ever energize anybody? So improve training, service training, leadership training, team building training, all those, and we've always in HR struggled to really justify the investment. And those service training courses where you have exhortations to smile, it may be awful, you may be backed up by no data, you may have a terrible job design, you may be on a hall of shame list, but don't worry, smile and everything will be okay. So all those kind of generic training we've stopped, and actually we're talking about training people in specific tasks in the redesigned workflow. So training is much more bespoke to the individual in the workflow, and that phrase spray and pray, we stopped doing that now. Instead we learn and find out what works. And we encourage people to experiment and innovate. And recently I visited one of our offices in Glasgow and walked through the floor, and every single team just talked naturally about what they were piloting. They were just trying out this, they were just testing this, and this was the measures that they would use. And it was really heartwarming for me, because I felt, well, could it be that this is actually a learning organisation? Has this come off the page? Is this actually something that's happening in reality? And I think it is. So the capability of the individual increases without very much formal training, because they learn to do the job and improve it, and then they share that learning. So talent management then, that's the recent war cry for HR professionals. So when you think of talent management, what do you think of? Sort of 9-box grid, forced ranking, who's in which box, talent moderation sessions, all that. Not done anything to release anybody's talent. It doesn't even lead to good career plans. It just is nothing. So as the work system is designed, better individual potential is released. We're told that the human brain has got limitless potential, and yet we think that we're going to actually release that by putting people in a box. So once it becomes easier to do a good job because your work is designed well, then individuals shine. The work design is clearer, so actually cross-functional moves are more successful, and it's less risky to try people in new areas and expand their scope of experience. And that happens naturally when you want to move somebody to actually improve something. You don't need a talent forum to do that. And also leaders who drive improvement emerge. I think some of our most successful leaders in driving this method were mostly all in the in the bottom left-hand box, which, if anybody's worked with those systems, they were a mismatch, low potential, not performing, because they came to life with the method, and that kind of that willingness to challenge and to be a little bit rebellious and think of things differently just came to the fore, and then they became great leaders. So really we've turned on its head a lot of our perceptions as to what is good talent. Okay, so reward, everybody's favourite there. A HR person always gets asked to design the new bonus scheme, and we come up with something very complex that nobody really understands, but that's handy because it'd be very difficult to explain anyway. And so we have complex and costly reward systems that forget that actually people are intrinsically motivated to do a good job. Most people want to come to work to do a good job and to give good service. And it's remarkable. Leaders will say, well, how come they sort of improved so much and done so much and worked so hard? We didn't bonus them on that. Less emphasis is placed on the individual and more on team reward or profit shares, and it becomes simpler and less costly to administer. And if you have to have a grading scheme, which one really does question the value of, it is more systematic and it's easier to size fairly. Okay, so just moving on to leadership development then. Again, without any sort of courses, leaders learn how to deliver step change and improvement. They learn how to become real advocates of fundamental change. They're there in the work coaching. They get to know their people. They get to know their customers. They understand the real drivers of value, of revenue, of cost, and they start to have the freedom to look ahead and be more strategic. You get better leaders, and you get better motivated leaders. And so as a result, of course, you get culture change by default. I think Barry used to say it was culture change for free. So you don't have complex cultural change programs. You don't have cultural characteristics pasted on every wall. It happens in the way people are and the way they treat their customers and the way they become and the way they improve. So from my point of view, the fact that systems thinking actually improves service and reduces cost is obviously extremely powerful. But for me, it's a way in convincing leaders that it's the right thing for people. Because culturally, it's a method that actually you don't do to an organisation. You bring leaders with you. So it's deployed to leaders and staff. They are educated and helped to see for themselves where the improvement needs to be and what is the problem they're trying to solve. This leads to a shift in the culture and provides a platform for continuously improving. It's also a highly strategic way of looking at the organisation because you start to get a basis then for improved relationships with your clients, and that leads to end-to-end improvement. But then more importantly, you start to innovate. So the general principle being that people are naturally innovative, but we put things in the way that stop them innovating. So by removing those constraints, people start to experiment well, and start to innovate.